Hi, everyone. Thank you, Susanna, for that. And of course, thank you for you all who are still online and in person with us. We have another really special guest. This is our friend, Leo, who also happens to be an actor. Okay, I was on a stage with a real actor. We took a selfie because that's pretty dope. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Leo Sheng. Leo is an actor and advocate and our special guest who was born in Hunan, China. Leo grew up in Ypsilanti, Michigan, adopted and raised by two moms. He understood the importance of access to community and community building. He also graduated from the University of Michigan in 2017, having worked at the Spectrum Center for 2 years and the William Monroe Multicultural Center for another 2 years. His first film role as Ethan in the feature film Adam, which premiered in the 2019 Sundance International Film Festival, as well as OutFest and Stonewall 50, led him to stepping down from the academics, meaning he dropped out, after his first year of graduate school. He was then cast in Showtime's highly acclaimed hit series, The L Word. Enthusiasm, Generation Q. Playing the series' regular role of Micah Lee, Leo continues to channel his advocacy in media and aims to center the stories of queer and trans communities of color. We are so excited and honored to have you, Leo. So let's welcome Leo. You weren't ready, huh? Okay. So Leo, Leo reached out and has been telling us so many exciting things about who they are as a person. You know, I have been fangirling Leo on television. Facts. And then when I got to learn about who you were as a person, I thought, oh my God, please come to our conference. So that people who are your fans and people who follow you could also know you as a person. In that context, I would like to ask, what are 2 things that you would want people to know about who you are, outside of your acting and your superb kind of stage presence?
Well, just wanted to thank you for inviting me. We only actually met in person in May for the first time, but it didn't feel like a first meeting. It was just really, I don't know, and yesterday was the second time to see you in person again, and it's just been so lovely being here and such an incredible experience, so thank you for having me. And I'm just like so mind blown by all the things that have been shared today, all of the wisdom and knowledge that's been shared, and we'll be processing it for a while, but I'm really grateful to be here. So two things I'd like people to know about me. I guess one is, I am a grad school dropout. That is a technical term. I completed 1 year. Okay. I completed half of a master's program at Michigan at the School of Social Work, so I did 1 year out of 2. And I guess one thing would be that my entry into media actually was through social activism and through writing as a teenager at like the Huffington Post Teen and MTV Voices, and collaborating on pieces around gender identity, and all of that led to my current job as an actor on the show. And so my background is in community building, and I think I hold that very dear to me, and it's a really important distinction for me. And the second thing is outside of I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan, and that's also very much shaped my view on my identity and my many identities, and my work in media and outside of media. So I don't know, sort of go blue, but I don't really care. I only went to 1 football game, and it was enough. Something like that.
Okay. I didn't even know what go blue was. But other people did. Okay. So, and then I didn't even know these things about how you became an actor was through writing and your advocacy and activism I had no, that's really interesting. So then can we ask you, how did you become politicized?
Well, so I grew up with two moms, and I feel like I've been thinking about this question a lot because to me, and the way I've been interpreting it is like what event in a way, but it's really been just my entire life. I think like I don't, I grew up knowing I was adopted. I didn't look anything like my parents, and that was not something that was hidden. It was not something that we didn't talk about. We were very open about it. My moms were very encouraging of me if I wanted to learn anything about, try and pursue any knowledge about where I came from and my biological family. And I realized I was trans when I was 12, and so there was this group in Ann Arbor called the Neutral Zone, and it's a teen group. It's a place for teens to come, and there's different programs. There's art programs, there's writing programs, there's leadership programs, and one of them was called Riot Youth, and it was a space where like queer youth from like all of Southeast Michigan, all around Southeast Michigan, would come and gather once a week. And I got to join. I was 12, but I got to join as a trial basis because they only allowed high schoolers. And through the like OG class of Riot Youth created this survey that they disseminated to schools based on school climate, not only around queer identity, but the results that they gathered, they took the ones mostly based on queer identity and made, they had guerrilla theater. So basically they took the results, turned it into a script, and would perform it at schools and in front of teachers and administrators at like PTA meetings. We would do events at the Neutral Zone. And so I got to join that, and shortly after I got to be a youth facilitator, because it was really youth run and there was adult like advisors, but that's, because we're not 18. But it was all youth run, and that was my first like real, like I think like official, quote unquote, official entry into like an organizing space. But like I think my entire life has been maybe even when not explicitly politicized, just because of my identities and because of the communities I grew up around and in, and the ones I didn't grow up around too. Like I was always had some racial identity awareness and like desire to talk about it, and even when I didn't realize that's what I was doing, that's what I was doing when I was a kid. So, but my official entry into like an organizing space was when I was like 12 or 13.
I didn't know that either. These are really, these are huge benchmarks in your life that kind of have led you to being here. So it's cumulative, it sounds like. And then you also mentioned that you've known from a young age your identity, your gender identity. And I think that's pretty exciting to have a place where you could try out and then act as well. So there were multiple kind of spaces of support. I hear that your parents were supportive, and I think that's really exciting. I am curious about any of the challenges that you've experienced coming into any of these roles, whether it be in Hollywood, in the industry, or when you were writing. Did it stay consistent? Were you consistently supported, or were there any challenges? And what were they?
That's a great question. Throughout, I think, high school, my teen years, and college, I mentioned I worked at the Spectrum Center at U of M, which is the Queer Resource Center. It's like the oldest one in the country, founded by Jim Toy in 1971. Jim Toy passed away last year. He was an Asian American queer icon in a way in Michigan. And I also worked at the Charter Multicultural Center for 2 years. So that kind of actually mirrored my high school experience when I was doing, Riot Youth. And then I kind of transitioned over to a group called SEED, which was students educating each other on diversity. And it was formed and run by people who were trained in IGR, intergroup relations, which was a program at Michigan. And it's a form of dialogue. It's like a format of dialogue and workshopping. But these spaces like SEED, Riot Youth was a place for me to experience and like own my trans identity, but I didn't have the tools to really figure out how that related to my Asian identity or my adoptee identity, and SEED helped me start to combine the two and realize that they are not all separate pieces, but rather like very much tied together. And it was again mirrored in my college experience, where I was like at the Queer Resource Center, then I was at the Multicultural Center, and I was constantly trying to find a way to bring every piece of myself to the programs I did, to the events I helped create and lead. One of the challenges has been how to like reconcile and really own all of my identities and not as separate entities of myself. And especially like I grew up in Ypsilanti, so the school district was predominantly black and then white students. I was like one of 3 Asian kids in my class consistently growing up. And so also trying to figure out, another challenge would just be like reminding myself, or telling myself, which I'm still doing every day, that I'm like Asian enough, which is, I say that with quotes because what does that mean? But so that has also played a role in my awareness around when I engage in like activism relating to like my Asian identity, and like knowing that I don't necessarily come from an Asian community or family, but still like my experience as an Asian American person is valid enough, and that my perspective is valid enough to be involved in this work.
I think that's a really important point, because at AAPI Women Lead, we really emphasize the intersections, right? So some people have learned intersectionality through the internets, and some people have known about the concept of intersectionality, which is existing at the intersections of multiple marginalities, right? So you're saying to us that for you, while you found political education or political home in certain spaces, you were trying to forge for yourself and figure out what it means to live at the intersections of multiple marginalities. I think it's also really important and interesting that you brought up the question around, in scare quotes, Asian, right? And I say that because for AAPI Women Lead, we don't really subscribe to identity politics. For us, it's relational. For us, it's also political. So when we say that we are these identities, it's a political identification. And more recently, we've made sure that we are struggling with against an identity of Asian and Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, against what our friend Lily and Professor Lily constantly reminds us is AAPI is a state formation. We didn't come here and suddenly we were AAPI, right? I've interviewed people who are just like, I knew I was Asian because they told me I was Asian, right? And so it's a political identity. And so I would love to ask you, how would you kind of identify, if we could, because we're tussling and we're struggling with what it means to be API Asian, right? For you, what does that mean if I say to you, it's a political identity? What would that mean, right? Because right now we see other narratives as us being like perpetual, we hear the perpetual foreigner. We also are now learning we're perpetual victims, right? So what else does it mean then to be quote unquote Asian right now?
Yeah.
That's not in our notes, by the way.
No, but it's a great question still.
Okay, thank you.
And it's something I don't know if I fully have an answer to, just because I don't know if I've had enough time to really kind of reframe it in that way. I think more, it's also like a more broad generalization. Whenever I'm in depending on the space, I'll specifically say I'm a Chinese American adoptee. Also, I guess, I don't know, I don't want to necessarily take up time rambling, but I want to think about that more, and I want to like think about that for myself, because I think also like partly maybe because I haven't had as much access to like Asian community and like that feeling, a lot of emotions around like what my identification is in terms of like racial identification they come with annoyance. Like I had this high school teacher argue with me about whether or not I called myself Asian American or just Asian. And she just kept saying, but you're American. I'm like, yes, but I don't want to like claim this American identity because I don't want to lose my Asian identity, because I already felt like I didn't have enough of it in a way. I didn't have enough connection to it. And she just kept going back and forth about like, but you're American. And I'm like, I know that. I am an American citizen, but I don't relate to America in the same way, which is I think that's what's coming up when I'm thinking of this question. But yeah, I want to think about that.
I also think that's a good point too, in the identification of quote unquote Asian. What is your relationship to America? Right? And what if you started that identification from that question? What is your relationship to America? That would fuck up a lot of things about how people stake claim to the identity, and what that means to take that identity as ours. So I'm with you on that journey. And I'm sorry I just threw that out there without prepping you.
That was a good question.
Do you like it? I mean, you helped me to think of it. Okay. All right. So then we have a couple of other less intense questions. But it follows up around that. So one of the questions and I'll put it together for time's sake, but the question is based upon the theme. You know, our colleagues and our friends have talked about reimagining everything. So for you, what does that theme mean? And then based upon your experiences on and off screen, how have you been reimagining everything? And how do you hope we can reimagine the world? I am going to say that I totally fangirled you when I saw you on L Word, because I'm old school and I watched the old L Word. And we were watching that and we were hella sad that there were no like ethnics on there, right? So we were really amped that you were helping to recreate L Word. So how do you imagine yourself reimagining everything? What would it look like?
I've been thinking about this question too, ever since it was sent over a few days ago. Because I Sean asked me this in the video interview, videographer, and I kind of rambled about like, you know, what does it mean to like think about a world that we want to create either with or without the barriers that are there right now? And I don't know if that question entails like, with the same conditions we have, if you wanted to like try something completely new. But I also keep thinking about solidarity, and learning about that word, I feel like I don't have a clear definition on that word, just because I feel like when I see in action, it's very different than how I would maybe describe it in a hard definition. And learning about what it means to like all the pieces of solidarity, like accountability in community and ourselves, support, love, and I think I would love to see because of my job, my current job, I would love to see a version of that world where people in positions of power, whether they're celebrities or not, it's hard because with social media we only see what we see, right? We don't see necessarily when a very famous actor will post something. Do we know that they talk to other people in social justice circles before they posted it, or do they just like reshare it because it had a lot of likes? And it's so easy to make the assumptions like, oh, they have no idea what they're talking about because it has this impact. When in reality, like, I don't know what this person's thinking when they post it. I just know that I don't agree. You know, I can think of several very high and famous East Asian American actors who have posted things under this like guise or under this like desire of not even solidarity, just like social justice. And I just don't agree necessarily with their methods. And I feel, I'm rambling. Okay, my point is, I would love to see a world where like when people in these positions post things, that it is because they have communicated and really worked with people in these movements, and that it's the people, I say these people specifically because of their platforms, because of the millions and millions of followers who will take what they say and see it as the truth, even if they have done their research or not. And I would love to see a world where the media world, the entertainment world, people in that world have a clearer relationship and solidarity practice, whatever that looks like, with people who are doing the work that they're posting about, because it's so easy to just reshare something and then they don't have the answers to the hard questions about, well, what about the politics of this and this and this? And they're like, I don't know, man. I just shared it because stop API hate, which is what people have talked about. It's like under that label. It's like, but you don't. That's not stopping it. So I'll just say that. That's a really roundabout way, but I'm not gonna name drop anybody. I'm not gonna name drop people, but I feel like people. I saw some heads nod, so I feel like y'all know who I'm talking about.
I mean, the truth is, like, Hollywood holds a lot of power.
So much power.
So we're excited you're there. We're just like, no pressure.
None.
But I think I'm just gonna, one, because I'm excited for your politics to be in that position. So I'll just be explicit around that. And I kind of want to end with a really simple question, which was also not on here. What's it feel like to be on the L Word? What's it like?
It is one of the most surreal experiences, I think, of my life, because it happened at a time, like, I left grad school for this shit. It's a whole other world. It is not, it's like the exact opposite in a way, in terms of the power and like influence and things that like I believed in and didn't believe in. And it's, you know, the show itself continues to be revolutionary in that it shows storylines, whether people enjoy them or not, that just aren't on TV.
Yes.
Or historically haven't been written or greenlit. They've been written, they haven't been greenlit.
Oh.
And I think that that's an important distinction too, when you hear people talk about like, oh, these stories are just now being told. There've been people, I'm sure there's like a Hollywood, like a blacklist of scripts that people, that, you know, it's considered stories that productions probably won't buy.
Wow.
So that you know that these stories have existed for decades, centuries, and that the show continues to push those boundaries and tell stories that have not been shown before in this way. And so I have a lot of pride in the courage to greenlight those stories. Yes. I work with some incredible people, some incredible actors and artists, and I just learn from them every single day.
Amazing.
So it's a beautiful experience.
Yes. So on that note, we're gonna have to wrap up so that we have our birthday celebration. But I hope that you will stay around and get to talk to people. Give hugs. I would ask for an autograph. Maybe your program. I don't know. Do you consent to that?
I mean, I haven't done it very often, but I consent. I don't know what my signature is though.
Superstar. Just sign superstar. Okay, so everybody, thank you, Leo, for joining us. I hope that was great for you all. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being our special guest. And then I'm gonna hand it back to our. Oh yeah. Woohoo! This is for you.